welcome to my podcast where I invite you to run with me after memories and shape them into stories. On this show, I'll also share samples of my writing and interesting moments from everyday life. I'm your host, rooroosig, and you're listening to my podcast, The Story Chaser. Tonight's episode is brought to you by Osco Sabina, Italy's olive oil. It is the first olive oil to earn the DOP status, a symbol of the highest quality of Italian products. The trees producing it are over 1,500 years old, making it the purest available. The oil has a buttery texture, a fruit-forward intro to the palate with a peppery finish, all of the most sought-after qualities of a fine olive oil. Get yours today from Signorelli Imports by texting Tom Signorelli at 708-567-1708. Tom Signorelli is your connector of the best olive oil on the planet, straight from the old country to your kitchen table. Welcome back, listeners. This is Season 3, Episode 10 of the Story Chaser podcast. And tonight, I'm talking about signs that are beyond us as artists, and how some rejection is a gift. And sometimes the signs and the rejection intertwine, and you just kind of let go and let it be. A dear friend recently said to me, "Sig, you're like this orphan, and I don't even know how you get through each day." And I chuckled, thinking about my idea of an orphan being a kid in mismatched clothes with perfectly placed dirt circles on each cheek and forehead, holding out their empty hands on a dimly lit street corner, saying something like, "Please, spare a coin or two." Or maybe I've just seen too many plays, but I reminded her that yes, heartbreaking and tragic my reality is, not having my parents, but I do have 11 siblings, so I'm not short on family. "Yeah, but still, dude," she said, and I thought about it after we hung up in my unusual life, losing both of my parents before turning 30 years old. And then I got to thinking about rejection. And maybe because I wasn't sad at the same time as her, and I deflected her attempt to feel sorry for me by turning to humor, because that's my way. Like maybe that was a form of rejecting her. I don't know. I went deep into rejection and all these thoughts. And I can't explain my train of thoughts. It's just what I jotted down while journaling it all out. So maybe I was feeling sorry for myself. Anyway, rejection in big letters across the top of the journal page. And overlooking the word got me to thinking about when I was auditioning for films years ago. And I would have that confident energy, playing off the crew who had just heard me read. We were saying things like, "Wow, that was really great." Looking at each other and nodding. And I would leave full of fire, charged up. I'd open the doors to the wide city, and I didn't even care that there was always seemed to be $100 parking ticket on my windshield when I got outside, because I figured I just landed a role, and no bother. Next time I'll pay my meters and all the meters of everyone around me because I'm a star, right? And it never failed. The next day, while I was sleeping off my celebration, I would always wake to a rejection message on my answering machine. Something like, "We liked what you brought to the audition, but our vision for the character took us in another direction. Best of luck to you in the future." And I'd be laying there like, what? Like between sleep and awake, not believing what I was hearing and thinking, wait a minute, who's going to pay this parking ticket, right? Maybe I was that poor orphan in the corner. "Please, Please spare $100 for this parking ticket, sir. I've grown used to creative rejection now, like years later, and I still face it every day. I'm just I'm just used to it. Oh God. So I'm gonna jump topics, and that might seem chaotic, but it's all gonna tie together. I promise. There's this restaurant that my boyfriend and I went to last year on St. Patrick's Day in Michigan. We love Michigan. We love ducking out of town, and it was later at night, and we were the last of a few tables left before they closed. And my dearest darling popped into the bathroom after our meal, and I was left enjoying the many framed photographs of the owner's family on the walls all around, walking around, looking at these slowly and feeling connected to these faces and events from what seemed like another lifetime ago. They were all captured in black and white, elegant in both attire and tone, really classic. Then I came across this dirty, half torn, framed document on the wall by the door, and I smiled because it was a fruit and vegetable peddler's license from the 1950s. But I almost knocked it off the wall with my face when I jerked closer because the name on it was the same as my grandmother's maiden name, my dad's mother. And I actually like looked over each shoulder now, searching for anyone I could grab and ask who this had belonged to, and no one was around besides some teenage hostess who was straightening up her stand quickly, trying to salvage the rest of her Saturday night and get out of there. And I snapped to her, like, "Hey, you over there! Is there a manager around?" And she pointed me towards the bar. And I turned back and I touched the frame lightly and gracefully and just felt like attached to it. Something special was going on. It was a sign from beyond. St. Patrick's Day is the anniversary of the day that we lost my dad, which was almost 30 years ago last year. And he was a produce provider to many restaurants in Chicago. And he too, at one time, had a license just like that peddler's license. And on a deeper level, I really missed him in that moment. And that led me to tears rolling down my cheeks. And I felt very strongly for all the sacrifices that he made for our family. I just felt like the whole entire thing was orchestrated from beyond. And he endured the dangers of the South Water Market in Chicago to provide for us. And here I was on the anniversary of his death in this restaurant with our his mother's name on a license. It was no mistake that I would see this and this connection. So I took a step backwards and I immersed myself in the photo collage walls once again, realizing that these people looked more than familiar. They looked like family. And a rising heat of both excitement and comfort ran through my blood as I found myself full of energy. Despite having just had a full meal, I was hyper, and I felt like how my dad would get. This is how he would get whenever he was about to pull in a fish from the lake, or trembled in delight when he was awing everyone with a great story. It was adrenaline. And I moved across the floor of that Italian restaurant on St. Patrick's Day in a direct mission to connect with my father's mother's name that was up on that wall. And the manager politely listened as I explained to her who my dad was, and my grandmother's maiden name was the same as that peddler's license, all of it. And she confirmed that it was the original owner's license, and now his grandson ran the restaurant, but he wasn't there, and he was going to be back for 2 days. And she was so sweet and engaging and genuinely interested in everything that I was telling her. But we were leaving Michigan the next day to head home, so I wasn't going to be able to meet him. This past St. Patrick's Day, like last week, exactly 1 year later, my boyfriend and I returned to the same restaurant. And this time, once again, in the spirit of my late father, I was determined to meet the owner and connect. We were there a little bit earlier. And I scanned the room throughout our meal all the way till the moments following paying the bill when I spotted him. A young guy, neatly dressed, walking from table to table, asking customers how they enjoyed their meal. And he was about to pass up our table when I stopped him. And I said, "You the owner?" And he slid in place and like backed up a few steps to stop at our table. And he said, "Yes, I am. I hope everything was okay here," concerned. And I smiled and I put my hand out for a shake. And as we shook hands and I introduced myself, I thought, our ancestors are connected, dude. This is wild. I explained who I was and my family name, and he, without missing a beat or detail, jumped right into the excitement of it. "This is so cool. Do you guys want to see another photo in the back?" He asked, and he didn't even wait for us to respond. He just started heading towards the swinging door of the kitchen, which I was directly following. I just went with it. And our matching energy was almost confirmation enough, that we were blood. And my boyfriend was kind of lagged behind. He was collecting my purse and coat and saying, "Hang on, guys, hang on. Where are you going?" And we all reached the kitchen, and this young restaurateur proudly held his flat palm out to a giant framed black and white photo of the South Water Market in Chicago from way back in the day, vintage. And it was frozen in time image, just loaded with the hustle and bustle of crowded streets, of peddlers hauling their fresh fruit and vegetables around in carts and dollies. And it was it was beautiful. With my head tilted back and taking in the whole photo from corner to corner, capturing these hard workers setting out to deliver all over the city, I said, not many people understand that the produce market is the core root of the restaurant industry. That's where it's at. And these guys don't get the recognition that they deserve. And he said, "I know, right?" I mean, obviously, that sweet, tattered peddler's license hanging by the door of this giant restaurant that his family owns now is the root of what they have going, this successful place. And I knew right then and there, the signs from beyond, what my next podcast episode was going to be. And before I get into tonight's piece of writing, we have another quick word from our sponsor. Olive oil is rich with antioxidants and anti-inflammatory properties, as well as a beautifying aid in a daily regimen. Don't go one more minute using anything but Osco Sabina olive oil, the purest of olive oils. Contact Tom Signorelli today by texting 708-567-1708 to get yours. Text number is also available in the notes of this show. Osco Sabina is the best olive oil on the planet. Straight from the old country to your kitchen table. So, messages from beyond and rejection and how they intertwine. I feel that if you create something, it belongs somewhere. It's just that what's really weird about time is that it's not always going to be when you want it to exist and in a certain place that you shoot for as artists. So, like I said, when I ended up in an Italian restaurant on St. Patrick's Day, on the anniversary of my father's death, realizing that our family, this was distant family that owned this place. And I didn't know that going in. I didn't know that until I saw a peddler's license from the 1950s on the wall. I felt strongly it was a sign. And I went into my rejection folders. And for tonight's piece of writing, I'm going to share something with you that did not make the cut in a sample writing contest for the Chicago Sun-Times. And even though it was disappointing that it didn't make it, they were looking for a sample piece about the city, whatever. The contest is the contest. I'm grateful it didn't make it because I think it has a better home here on my podcast. And so here it is. It's a glimpse, a flash, really, and it's titled The Produce Man. A person has a good restaurant experience and they'll tell 5 friends. They have an unpleasant experience, they'll tell 25. That's a sick part of human nature. My brother Tony once told me. And it served as the vehicle for my piece, The Produce Man. Forget online reviews if you want to know how a restaurant is doing these days. A lot of them are customers who are briefly disgruntled, then move on. Honestly, a hidden robot could have easily fabricated most of those reviews to help the competition. And the owner won't be able to tell you either. The owner, much like a parent, will only tell you the good things about their baby restaurant, looking through rose-colored glasses. Asking customers that you actually know will give you a better idea of how the food tastes or where the strengths are in service, but it won't answer the question, how is that place doing? If you really want to know the truth, ask the produce delivery man. And you phrase the question like this: when is the last time that place paid you? His answer will reveal yours. If it's only been a couple of weeks, well, the place stands a chance of surviving. If it's been over 6 months, a going out of business sign will probably hang crooked in the window soon enough. It is a hard reality and more common every day. And I don't mean to cast these restaurant owners in a negative light. For the past 4 years, a major shift has rocked the food and beverage industry. And I'm aware of the terrible impact this has, especially on the produce man. The independent produce delivery man is the little guy who runs his own big thing. Seldom seen, the produce man is easily forgotten and sometimes goes unpaid. His industry, particularly in Chicago, is a shadow of its former self, causing widespread disappointment. To be clear, it has never been a glamorous job. His workday begins while his family is still deeply asleep. Even in summer, 2 a.m. is always cold, but it's especially frigid in January. His fingers cling to the truck's steering wheel as he pleads with the engine to start, usually needing several attempts amid a rising panic and the loss of valuable time on the Dan Ryan. On the Dan Ryan, lost seconds accumulate into extra minutes and hours of travel time. His day starts by sharing the roads with intoxicated people, ending their nights of fun. His workday starts dangerously, and the journey to the South Water Market holds more threats. Rats and criminals alike, everywhere he looks, waiting for scraps to fall from passing trucks. The South Water Market is a row of storefronts, small, set upon cement where garage doors roll up to display stacks of tomatoes, potatoes, celery, oranges, and more. The produce man buys his goods meticulously, crate by crate and box by box, ensuring he stays organized and fulfills all orders accurately. He immediately fronts his money, anticipating that he will spend the rest of the day chasing after it. Dolly after dolly, the goods are moved to the trucks, keeping one eye over his shoulder, vulnerable and cold. He loads it all into the truck. "Never leave the truck unlocked, it'll be boosted for sure," said every produce man to another. And now it's time to deliver to restaurant after restaurant all over the city. A prep chef waits at the back door of each one, tapping their watch. The prep chef is held captive, kneading the fruits and vegetables, mere par for the soups, or their day can't go on. Well, this is as good a place as any to end this episode. My name is rooroosig, and I thank you for listening to The Story Chaser. Remember, there are stories everywhere. The key is to focus in on the little memories to find the bigger moments. My promise to you is that I'll keep chasing those stories. Be well, folks, and go ahead. Have a wonderful life.